Thanks, councillors. I'd like to start with Acknowledgement of Country. The Council acknowledges and pays respect to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional owners and custodians of this land on which we live. And now the prayer. May the words of our lips and the meditations of our hearts be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. Welcome, everybody. We have an apology from Councillor Overton this evening. Sorry, I think I'm right. So we'll move straight on to 1.1, the confirmation of the minutes. Can I have somebody move that they be confirmed? Thanks, Councillor Hiscott. Seconded, Councillor Viney. Any queries on those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 2.1 is council workshops. There's a list there of workshops. Can I have somebody move that that report be received?
So moved, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Beswick. Seconded, Councillor Diprose. Any queries on those workshops? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 3.1 is Mayor's Communications. There's nothing to report there. 3.2 is the Mayor's Diary, and I would just like to add two events that I attended over the weekend or yesterday. And one was the Penguin Over 70s lunch, and the other one was, 25th birthday celebration afternoon tea. Can I have somebody move that the reports be received? Thanks, Councillor Viney. A seconder, please. Thanks, Councillor Fuller. I'd just like to report on the 70s and over lunch yesterday. It was, I was asked to be the guest speaker. Leonie Hiscott, MLC, was the chairperson, but she'd been able to give me some notes on Kevin. It was Kevin who was the brainchild of the 70s and over, so it's been going for 33 years. And Kevin and Marlene, they had goods donated and food and vegetables and meat and all that donated, and got the volunteers to help with all of the work. And for over 25 people in the room. And then the Lions Club took that over a few years ago. But it was really nice to be able to reflect and talk about Kevin and what a great contribution that he had made to the community. Any queries on any of those other events? The Deputy Mayor has also done the opening at the Ulverston Mission Shop. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. 3.3 is declarations of interest. Anybody having any interest to declare? No. 4.1 is councillor reports. Councillors who have been appointed by the council to community and other organisations wish to report. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the pleasure of attending the committee meeting of the Chamber of Commerce. We're very pleased with how their business awards evening went, both the attendance and the business story of Rod White that he shared with those in attendance that night, and a fabulous meal at Pedro's. So they were really during the year, and obviously those of us that were there would agree, I'm sure, that it was a really good night and some worthy awards. As you're aware, Mayor, the new committee of the Chamber has asked that regular meetings with some of their executive and yourself and the General Manager start when it's convenient for you all to catch up again and just try and improve the communication that way. But it was councillors might look out for an invitation for that event.
I think we have that initial meeting in our diary already.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Any other reports? Councillor Hiscott.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to the Slipstream Circus, so they night cabaret recently, and they're intending to continue on with that on new occasions. I think the next one in January, so get your tickets fast because they're selling out. And also they've announced a new class that they've been putting forward, a Parents and Bubs class, which looks quite interesting.
Thank you. Any other reports? Thank you. 5.1 is leave of absence. There are no applications. 6.1 is deputations. There are none. And 7.1 there is petitions, and there are none that have been presented. 8.1 is councillor questions without notice. So Councillor Van Ryn.
No, Mayor.
Councillor Beswick.
No, Mayor.
Councillor Diprose.
No, Mayor.
Councillor Viney.
No, Mayor.
Councillor Fuller.
Yes, please, Mayor. Just one for the General Manager.
Thank you. Councillor Hiskett.
Thank you, Mayor. One for Director of Infrastructure.
Councillor Carpenter.
No, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. And none for myself. 8.2 is councillor questions on notice, and no questions have been received. 9.1 is public question time, which would be normally held at 6:40. There have been no questions tabled tonight, or no submissions for public question time at this meeting, and no questions were taken on notice from the 20th of September meeting. So we move on to 10.1, which is the minutes and notes of committees of the council and other organisations. There's quite a few there. Can I have somebody move that they be received, please? Thanks, Councillor Van Ryn, and seconded Councillor Diprose. Any queries on any of those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Point 2 is the quarterly performance report and annual plan progress. Can I have somebody move that be received, please? Thanks, Councillor Hiskett. Seconded, Councillor Viney. Councillor Hiskett, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say that it looks like we're on track on a lot of items. There's a lot of items still to put a lot of work into as well, but it's early first quarter report's always the hardest one because you've got to get a roll on things. So, but no, reporting that looks pretty on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.3 is the Central Coast Local Economic Development Framework. Can I have somebody move that be adopted? Thanks, Councillor Fuller. A seconder, please. Councillor Beswick. Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak to this?
Just briefly, Mayor, thank you. Obviously, we've had a workshop where the staff members that have been working on this framework made their presentation to us. There's some good actions there with what appear to be some good tight timelines, which is what I like to see, and looking forward to starting some of those engagement activities with the sectors of the community that are also working in this space or would benefit from working collaboratively with others. So endorse the report and look forward to the commencement.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Yes, Mayor.
Councillor Van Ryn.
I think all of you would have got the message when we discussed this at a workshop. And you probably know what I'm going to say. But, and as I read this report, at the beginning in the preamble, it even mentions that this is economic theory, and it is really only in theory. I don't believe that this report will encourage any businesses to come and establish themselves alone. That report alone will encourage any businesses to come into our municipality and set up in the area that private enterprise has in economic development. And I believe that well, when you look around the town, many of the businesses exist by private enterprise. We should be encouraging private enterprise as much as we can and not put obstacles in their way. And you know what I'm referring to. Recently, I've been involved in 2 cases where council staff have interfered and added extra expense onto the projects. In one case, the workers were ordered to stop work, millions of dollars cost, and I believe that the council should be here to help private enterprise. When people come into the building and they go upstairs, the attitude should be, what can we do to help you? What can we do to help you navigate your way around the red tape? And that is not always the case. I have spoken to people who have come away from upstairs quite disappointed at the attitude of some of the people that they've talked to. Admittedly, there's always two sides to every story, but we should do all that we can, and in some cases, council should just keep out of the way. The businesses that we've got in the town have come about despite the council, not because of the council. And I'm just hoping that that people will acknowledge that, the role that private enterprise plays, and be more considerate towards private enterprise and not become an obstacle to people doing things. It takes a lot of courage to set up your own business. There are people that invest their money, even hock their house to raise the capital to go into business. And these are people that we have to look after and protect. Now, sure, they need to comply with the planning scheme and so on, but we should be much more helpful to people and offer services that would encourage them to come to the town. I think that the main reason that people would come to the town to set up a business, in my opinion, is the availability of cheap industrial land. The Ulverston Council, in their wisdom years ago, bought Smith's Farm out here at East Ulverston and developed industrial blocks out there that are there now and being fully utilised. And when you drive through there and you see at the businesses that we've got and how many people are employed out there, it was a good decision on the part of the Ulverston Council at the time. We now don't have any industrial land. It's all been taken up. And you'll think that I'm just beating the same drum, and I am, because I feel strongly about it. There was talk a few years ago to extend the industrial drive right through and develop the rest of the land that we've got there in industrial blocks. Now, it's been put on the burner. We are looking at other areas to rezone for industry. We've not had much success. But we own all that land out there, and I would like to see it developed, and that's what will bring businesses into the town. There seems to be some resistance to it. Some people don't think we should have industrial land at the entrance to the town. Well, if I drive into a town and I see industry, and I think to myself, well, there's employment here, there's wealth here being created, and I would like to see that area developed as a matter of urgency. And let's put some, blocks on the market that people can buy and establish industry in the town. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Van Rooyen. And I'm sure that you'll be pleased to know that those actions are to look at what we do with that block is certainly in our action this next year. So we will be looking at that. And I agree that, bringing in it's businesses that create economic development, but I also think it's councils that create the environment where people want to come and do business. So,
let's do it, man.
Any other speakers?
Yeah, if I may. Yeah, I appreciate Councillor Van Rooyen's opinion there and totally agree with a lot of concepts. But people have also got to be aware that economic development is just not all about bringing businesses into your town. And there are so many pillars of economic development to make it successful at some level. It's having a great place to live and being able to have, if I want to set up a business here and want to employ 50 or 60 or 100 people, I also want to know that they want to be able to settle here, live here, have schools, have footpaths, footy grounds, sports grounds, and all that sort of stuff. And the social well-being of my employees and their kids is as important to me as what it would be for a block of ground. Totally understand your sentiments and everything else, and as the Mayor stated, the block you're talking about is in our plan to do this year. And you could categorise councils on pushing for residential economic growth, or as business and employment economic growth, and other sorts of economic growth right through. And we probably haven't got them all aligned at once, as you quite openly stated. And I think that's all there for improvement. But there is so many different avenues to economic development. And this is actually only a framework to let our sort of staff to be able to work with that. I would hate to think that we do put roadblocks in developers' way. I understand that we do. I really do. But I would always think that we're, as a council, and as council laws, that we would be always impressing that should be at the back, the forefront of getting rid of this red tape. Having said that, sometimes getting rid of red tape causes more red tape, and it goes in reverse. So we've got to be careful sometimes. But thank you for your comments. It brings to the table and keeps everybody on their toes, and it does.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
Yeah, I agree with both the other speakers, Councillor Carpenter and Councillor Van Rooyen. But I also will be supporting the framework. I look at the Northwest Coast region as much as anything, and I don't necessarily think that as much as we do need some industrial land, I don't think we should be solely focused on it. I think the economic framework and development for our town could be as, let's say, as a satellite town to the other areas, which may be a little bit more industrialised. There's more to, I suppose, economic benefits for a municipality than just having businesses. It can be that it's a vibrant place to live. As I mentioned before, I see the Northwest Coast as a region, and we're one part of that. So I'm pleased to hear that we're be looking at the land out the road, because it needs to be one way or the other developed into something. But yeah, I acknowledge everybody else's comments, and as has been said, it's a framework for us to work with over the ensuing years. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Van Rooyen, would you like to close?
Oh, Mayor, I'd like to ask.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. The Councillor Fuller.
Indeed, I'd like to close, Mayor.
Did you, Martha? Oh, my apologies. I was thinking that Councillor Van Rooyen was.
It was because he made such a great contribution earlier on, Mayor, that you've got those two mixed up. And if Councillor Van Rooyen doesn't mind, I will close.
You have a question? Yes.
It's come as a surprise to me what you've said, that we will be looking at the future of that land out there at East Alvis. And I've been pushing this for the last 3 or 4 years, and no one's ever mentioned to me. All I've had is obstacles.
It's certainly been mentioned. It's in our annual plan.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it.
Councillor Fuller, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mayor. I will. And to again echoing the sentiments of others, some of what Councillor Van Rooyen has said is quite accurate, and it does play to be honest about such things. It is a framework of theory. It is, and it's obviously been a lot of work done by the author to ensure that there is sufficient theory and evidence backing the assumptions. Some of the timelines are a little bit confusing to me, but some of the actions are really good in as far as sometimes the best action you can take is just to get all of the other players in the room and to initiate conversations. Not sure what's happening with the microphone there. Take it back.
No, towards you.
Towards me.
And try and.
And I suppose if there was one thing that I am looking forward to seeing that's perhaps not evidenced there is the work with the region. As you've said, there's not a lot of working with the Cradle Coast Authority as our regional entity that I see there. I see lots of lobbying other layers of government. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the outcomes and having those outcomes reported in due course. And my apologies for the audio.
Yes.
I made a
Try and
note
get
to that one checked.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, councillor Fuller. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Is there anything anybody can suggest with councillor Fuller's
Swapping that other one over there, man.
speaker?
Get the one from the centre.
I'll just put it right in front of you.
It's-
I'll just be quiet for the rest.
No.
Just see how it
Well,
goes.
yes, see how it goes. All right, 10.4 is correspondence addressed to mayor and councillors. There's a schedule there. Can I have somebody move that be received, please?
So moved.
Thanks, councillor Beswick. A seconder, councillor Diprose. Any queries on that correspondence? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.5 is the common seal. There's a schedule there. Can I have somebody move that be received, please?
So moved.
Thanks, councillor Viney. A seconder, please.
Second.
Councillor Beswick. Any queries on those items? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, we were on 10.5, weren't we?
Yes.
Sorry, I got distracted there. Just in relation to the Part 5 agreement for Albert Street and Turners Beach, what does that involve? Or happy for someone to take that on notice?
Takes it on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's to do with planning, but I can't tell you exactly what.
No. Not urgent.
Is that Turners Avenue?
No, Albert Street.
Oh, Albert Street, sorry.
Between two neighbouring properties.
Any other queries? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.6 is contracts and agreements. Can I have somebody move that they be received, please? Thanks, councillor Carpenter. A seconder, councillor Hiskett. Any queries on those contracts and agreements? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.7. Sorry, councillor Fuller, you had a question for the general manager.
Thank you, Mayor. It was just in relation to our very nice evening at Health and Haybridge with the residents out there, in how we capture all of the questions and the items that are raised, and how we endeavour to make sure that those that are present in the room, it's difficult, I know, how we make sure that some of that information is fed back to that community to ensure that people know that they were heard of it. So I'm not sure whether directors then spoke to individuals and captured their contact information afterwards, or just wondering how we can ensure that we always do that really well as far as providing feedback after those events.
One of the things that we do is that we list them all down, all the questions and everything together for the senior leadership team, and through that we then start collating all the information together and the actions together, and also getting them out to some of our staff who need to do that, some of the work, some of the meetings, and deal with it there, and we do that. So we endeavour to get the information back to them. So one other thing we're looking at doing is from the community morning teas or suppers, is actually putting that onto the website with the questions and our responses, so all the community can get that. We were going to do that with the Guns Plains one, and I'll be looking at continuing that with the house one.
Great, thank you, it's good.
Thank you. Move on to community services. First one is fees and charges for the Hive. There's a report there and suggested resolution at the end. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution? Thanks, councillor Carpenter. Second, councillor Viney. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to speak?
Yeah, it was good to be able to workshop this, and it's got to come under our fees and charges policy, as we all know. And with the Hive opening very, very shortly, of course, you've got to have these in place legally to make sure we can operate under that. And it's good to see throughout the workshop that council's agreed, along with staff, that we need some flexibility in our charges moving forward over the next 6 months and until next June or whenever we set them again, to make sure we capture everyone that wants to come and get a feel of how people want to move through that, and what is a fair fee and charge to be able to hire that building. So thank you to the staff for putting this together. I think it gives us the flexibility for the staff to operate under, and to be able to go out and attract all the clientele that we want to see come to that fabulous place, Mayor. So definitely endorse it.
Thank you. Councillor Viney.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I'm in agreement with Councillor Carpenter in what he has to say, and we just have to remember that this is an initial setup with fees and charges, and it'll depend upon the feedback and the usage of the facility into the future as to where it goes from here on in. But it's certainly it's not set in stone for the next 20 years, anything like that. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Yes, Mayor.
Councillor Van Ryn.
Look, I endorse what we've got in front of us. I am particularly pleased that the cost to schools and special interest groups, particulars on application, I think that is good. But I do think that we need to make a decision fairly soon on that, so that the staff have guidance as to what they quote people. At the moment, the general manager has that role, but the staff need to know, what it's going to cost school groups when they get inquiries. So I'd like to see that handled fairly quickly.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Hiskett.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to acknowledge what a reasonable price that is to get into such an amazing piece of infrastructure. Looking forward to a family day out that's not going to break the bank.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to close?
Just endorse what Councillor Hiskett just said. I'd never thought of it that way before, but that's an excellent way to look at it. There's not very often you can go out in today's world with your family, unless it's to parks and footpaths and everything like that, and not spend a couple of $100. So to go out and enjoy it like you just noted, Councillor Hiskett, that's a heck of a marketing plan. Well done.
Thank you. On that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.8 is council acting as a planning authority. Can I have somebody move that be received? Thanks, Councillor Hiskett. Seconded, Councillor Viney. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Move on to 10.9, the demolition of an existing dwelling at 9 Braden Street, Penguin. Councillor Carpenter has an alternate motion.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to put an alternate motion forward for councillors to consider. It's been circulated. I'll read it. It's only under conditions. It's under condition 2, a landscaping plan for the frontage to Braden Street, and there's a sentence there that's been changed, which allows for retention of the large cedar growing on the northwest corner of the property, must be provided and implemented. The landscaping plan is to be to the satisfaction of the general manager. And then if you turn over under notes, this has been put together by Councillor Fuller, from Councillor Fuller with the staff, under notes that council strongly encourage reconsideration of the removal of established trees not protected under condition 2 along the northern boundary, retaining as much of the existing highly valued green canopy in this residential area as possible. I'd like to put that forward.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to speak to this?
Thanks, Mayor. This is a good outcome, Mayor, in all regards, because every community and every municipality is under pressure from affordable residents. So the fact that we're getting 7 units built there in the heart of Penguin, first and foremost, is a good outcome on that bit of land that's there alongside the Catholic Church. The disappointing part was that was going to knock down an existing green space with trees that, you know, in the vicinity of somewhere probably 100 years old, 90 years old, without any consideration, and replacing them with buildings and concrete and bitumen. And if you think about the outcome and being able to work with the developer now, that's an excellent way to be. And unfortunately, through the planning scheme, there is nowhere in the planning scheme in residential ground on them blocks where council can say, I want to keep that tree. And first and foremost, why would you want to knock down a 100-year-old tree and then turn around and replant a stick in its place to live another 40 or 50 years to see it grow? But I think there's more to this than just a couple of trees. And we know that we've got our Central Coast green canopy and tree policy, and that's not quite in place yet. If that was, we might have had a bit more teeth. But if you're developing a block of units or residential units, and we can imagine these, that they've got all ability access, so there could be people there with wheelchairs, people there with disabilities, it could be people there of all walks of life. What better place to be able to get to know your neighbour and come out of your unit and sit underneath a tree on a green space that's already there, share a drink or a cup of coffee, and get rid of the worries of the world. Now that's already there. Why didn't the people that decided to put these units there think of that in the first place? In the last 2 years, what's the biggest thing we see on TV and radio is mental health. We pull down green space and pull down trees that you can sit under and enjoy the canopy of the tree and enjoy one another's company. That is the best thing for mental health, to be able to get out and share your stress points, share your stories, share your worries with someone else. So even if you like trees or don't like trees, think of it in the other way of what they bring to the social aspect and the visual amenity and the well-being of the residents that are going to live in them blocks. And we're going to develop the recreation ground. And if this was going to be part of that aesthetic theme of going through the recreation ground of concrete and bitumen, well, gee, it's not going to be a very pretty place for our next generation to live in. And it's definitely not one that I want to see there. We can have too many trees in the wrong places. We can have the wrong varieties in the wrong places. But I think when all our work's done in the next month or two, our palette and the types of trees that council will plant or are allowed to plant will be under control. But these trees are in the right place, can be accommodated, and they are going to be so much value to the people that's going to live in them units. So if you look at that block of units that's there and you look at the one on the east, where can they go and sit with their neighbour if they're not only in their little backyard in that little 4 square metre space? Here's this beautiful open piece of area, might be 10 or 20 metres wide with a beautiful tree canopy. Sit underneath that in your picnic chair, bring out the Weber, have a barbecue, and it's there free of charge. It's already there. Councillors, consider it and see what you think.
Any other speakers?
Yes, ma'am.
Councillor Van Rooyen.
Well, I like the proposed development. I really do. This is what we've been sort of pushing for a long time, infill in our inner areas, and you know, to get 7 residences there in that area is great for the CBD of the town. So I fully support it.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Viney.
Yes, I'm pleased to support the alternate motion as well. Once again, as Councillor Van Rooyen had said, it's great to see the infill in the residential zone, but also very pleased that we can actually actively encourage the developer to not pull down those trees and use them within the site. And if that comes to fruition, that would be a wonderful result. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick.
Yes, Mayor. I'm a supportive of trees in their right places, and I concur with Councillor Van Rooyen. We need affordable housing for people preferably close to the CBD where people may not have their own vehicles and things like that. I just wonder how restrictive it's going to be by keeping the trees there, looking at the site plan, whether they'll be able to keep them all and keep the same quantity of units there. You've also always got to look at the effects of foundations to properties and so forth, because in the end, maintenance costs adds to the cost of housing people and so forth as well. But I'm pleased with the clauses that have been put in. But it'd be good for the council staff and the developers perhaps to work together to see if they can come up with something that might be better for everybody. And I agree with Councillor Carpenter as far as, you know, just a space to be able to go and sit outside that's got nice green canopy to be able to share stories and so forth with. But there's pros and cons with trees. It's very difficult if one had one's own block and wanted to do some development there. It's a bit like Councillor Van Rooyen was speaking earlier about red tape. When somebody wants to do something, it's your piece of land. So it's a very difficult situation, but I'll be supporting the motion as has been put.
Any other speakers? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mayor. Good conversation, great alternative motion with some additions there. It's the easy way to knock everything down and start again from a blank slate. It's easy whether you're doing it in your own backyard or whether you're doing a piece of art or constructing anything. That's easy, and it's harder to do things a little bit differently. And we all know what the planning scheme says, and we all know what the law is, and what people's rights and responsibilities are, and that's what keeps our community intact and safe and reliable and consistent. I believe that it's always council's job just to encourage the better, and I'm satisfied that this alternative motion goes some way to doing that. As has been said, we've got the Greening Central Coast strategy out there, and that is part of leading to do the better. And one of the priority actions there, I noticed that the Penguin Street canopy currently 16%. We need to hang on to every piece of street and residential canopy that we have. And I really hope that this motion and the note just allow the owners to just think twice, because I'm sure they have not considered it in the frame that Councillor Carpenter has put it in about what an absolute asset and icon that tree can become in Braden Street, and part of the good work of a fabulous development that's been done by a good organisation for all good reasons. So hoping that also when they are provided with that condition and the note, that it will allow a bit of conversation, a bit of broader thinking about those other aspects that are there. The other trees that are along that property are a bit more difficult in their location, and they're not quite as magnificent as the large cedar, but I would argue that they are established, and because they are established of the age that they are already making a beneficial contribution to the climate elements that we face in our community, as well as the mental health ones. Brand new trees just simply not do that. That's the reality. So yes, I support the motion and think it was a good piece of work for a development application that we'd received at this point in time. So thank you.
Councillor Heskett.
Thank you. Yes, agreeing with the statements that have come before, just to acknowledge how important these sort of housing developments are for a town like Penguin. It's not only affordable housing for new people coming in, but also for people who want to downsize, and then provides a space for people to downsize into, because there's also, as we know, a lot of demand for families in that region as well. So that opens up other houses. So fully supporting the motion, the alternate motion as put, and I think good work to the fellow councillors who have put towards an alternate motion that still allows a great development to go forward, but also does recognise the importance of the green infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Just turn my computer off. my mistake. I absolutely agree that we do need development. Housing is a very dire shortage right now, and we certainly need development in our community. And what we're seeing is lots of new subdivisions popping up all over the place. But what we do need is good development, because it's not just about the building and the bricks and the mortar. It's actually about the environment, as Councillor Carpenter said. So somehow you've got to find that balance. And yes, you've mentioned our Greening Central Coast strategy, and we're currently doing our cultural heritage study at the moment as well. And hopefully one day that's going to protect things exactly like these 100-year-old cedar trees that should never have been considered to take down. There's a way of doing really good subdivisions, and we've got to encourage our developers. And I really congratulate these developers for actually listening and considering another alternative to make this a much better development than what it was starting to sort of look like. But I certainly am pleased to see this addition into the alternate motion. Were there any other speakers? Sorry. Councillor Carpenter, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mayor. Great input by the councillors there, and I think we're all on the same railway lines on where and how we would like to see developments look in the future. And again, use the notes at the back, and I think any developers looking through council minutes going forward should be able to get a bit of a feel on what we would like to see under new developments. And it's respect to all, men. Respect to all. We need these developments to happen. We need units, we need new houses. But, when you've got something that's there as good as what it could be made, you could make it an unbelievable open space. And I'm sure with some very minor amendments, we'll still get the 7 units in there, and, plenty of room on Braden Street for car parking in some form or other, and other things. I think we can do a little bit more and be more creative, so we don't want to see a unit disappear, man. Want to keep them there. But thank you, councillors, and good outcome.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Go on to 10.10, which is a residential dwelling, setbacks and building envelope for all dwellings and privacy for all dwellings at 22 Barlane Place, West Ulverston. There's a report and suggested resolution there. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution?
I'll move it, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Beswick. A second. Thanks, Councillor Van Rooyen. Councillor Beswick, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Mayor. As a builder, I don't like to see things necessarily rejected for no reason, but unfortunately in this case, I believe it's just encroaching too much on the neighbouring properties. Obviously, the developers had the opportunity to perhaps address some of the issues that the planners had with the proposal, and I think it could have been worked in the early stages to probably get something a little bit more compliant to be approved. I sort of feel for the owners of the property that the applicant has put this application in for. Whether they're aware of where it was at or not, I don't know. But I would always encourage any developer to come in and talk to the planners and work with them to be able to get something that in the end will get approved. So I will be supporting the recommendation with regret, but hopefully they can tweak it up and bring it back, and the council staff look favourably on helping through the process to get it moving forward. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Van Rooyen.
Look, I fully agree with the recommendations of the planning staff. When you look at the shading diagram that is supplied with the application, that really is unacceptable today for someone to shade a property to that extent. And I notice in the report that there should be little shading after 3 p.m. Well, I don't think they should have to put up with it for so long, for the sun to come around so that it doesn't shade their property. With people are very conscious on energy saving and so on, and the best heater that we've got is the sun. And if your house is built to catch the sun, and someone comes along and builds a big double-story building in front of it, and shades your property, well, up goes your heating cost. So I fully support the recommendation. It's a pity that it's come to this. It's a pity that architects and draftspeople and so on don't consider these things right from the word go before they put them into council, and then they would have a better chance of getting them passed. I'd like to see the development go ahead, but in a different form.
Any other speakers? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. It is disappointing. I concur with the other speakers. Of course, the main issue here is the visual impact that is caused by the scale, bulk or proportions of the dwelling when it is and how that impacts on the neighbouring properties. It's just disappointing. And like Councillor Beswick, I've got no idea if the owners of the block and owners of what they are hoping to be their new home are aware of the process, or aware that it's come to council tonight, or aware of how relatively easily it could have moved from a no to a yes. And none of us like to decline developments such as this. We've seen it numerous times, even in the last 12 months, the tens of thousands of dollars that these new homeowners or prospective homeowners spend getting it to this point, to have this planning authority have no alternative but to reject it. The best you can hope for is that they thereafter understand the process and realised that we were left in a position where we could do nothing but reject it. So I hope that it comes back to us soon. I hope that the applicant now realises that such things aren't acceptable in Central Coast. We're interested in the well-being of everyone who lives adjacent to new developments, and everybody is entitled to a great aspect and not to be unduly disadvantaged by their neighbour. So, yeah, unfortunately, supporting the recommendation, and do hope to see it back in a different format very soon.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Beswick, would you like to close?
Yeah, just briefly in closing, Mayor, just a bit of a clarification. I suppose Councillor Van Rooyen's mentioned shadowing. That's one concern with the previous application, that we keep the big trees there, and we're also creating shadowing because I don't think they're deciduous trees. We're actually creating shadowing with the units by leaving the trees there. The shadowing diagrams are actually a bit deceiving because when you see a shadow diagram, the extremity of the shadow is actually where it hits the ground. So you can actually still be having sun in your house, even when the shadows are on there. But it's still a bulk and scale, like to be within 1.5 metres of a boundary with a 2-storey high. It's just too close. I hope that the applicant and the owners can work something out so that they can put it forward again. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Move on to infrastructure services, 10.11. So schedule there. Can I have somebody move that those determinations be received? Thanks, Councillor Van Rooyen. Seconder, Councillor Fuller. Any queries on those determinations? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.12 is the tenders for resealing of urban and rural roads for 21-22. Can I have somebody move the suggested resolution? Thanks, Councillor Viney. A seconded, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Viney, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, it's pleasing to see how many local tenderers we had in this process. And as an aside, it's also good to be able to see us actually come in front of the budget for the item by a considerable amount of money, and hopefully that continues into the future.
Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Councillor Hiskett, you had a question for the Director of Infrastructure Services.
Thank you, and it may have been misdirected. So there we go. Just wanted an update from July's agenda, where a motion was moved that the waste strategy was to be presented to a workshop within the October month. Just wanted to see where that was, if you had an update on that, or if you want to take that on notice.
No, it's to be brought to the first workshop in November now, so that will be part of the workshop for the waste strategy.
Right, and so the issues regarding those things will be included in that conversation in that workshop. November, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to corporate services. 10.13 statutory determinations. Can I have somebody move that they be received there, please? Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. Seconder, Councillor Duprose. Any queries on those determinations?
Still bouncing
Speaking.
along there.
They are. No speakers. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. 10.14 is the financial statements. Can I have somebody move that they be received, please? Councillor Fuller. Seconder, please. Councillor Beswick. Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak to us?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say that I was happy with how they appeared. We've had some good questions before the meeting where councillors had an opportunity to seek some clarification on any items. So, yeah, it all seems fine to me, and thank you for the work that goes into the preparation of them for us.
Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. That brings us to the closure of our meeting to the public.